The recent earthquake on Taiwan's east coast has exposed both the strengths of Taiwan's newer buildings and the difficulties in redeveloping old ones. More Chinese civilian drones have been spotted spying on Taiwan's military. Former Taiwan President Ma Ying-jeou visits famous sites as he tours through China. Plus, spectators across the eastern United States take in a total solar eclipse. Hello and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Leslie Liao bringing you the latest. Search and rescue efforts are continuing for 6 people still missing after last week's massive earthquake that killed 13 people. But hopes are fading that any more survivors will be found alive. The magnitude 7.2 tremor struck off the coast of Hualien on Wednesday morning, triggering landslides across Taiwan's rugged east coast, including in Taroko National Park, one of the country's most popular tourist destinations. 5 of the missing, including 2 foreign nationals, are believed to be in the Sakatang hiking trail. Rescue teams believe bodies are trapped along the hiking trail, but say aftershocks and debris are hampering recovery efforts. Meanwhile, the economic fallout of the quake across Taiwan is being tallied. A winery in Hualien is reporting losses of over $400,000, and a fire at a university triggered by the tremor has caused over $15 million worth of damage. The earthquake has left dozens of buildings across Taiwan unstable or in need of repair, and several hundred families may need to find new homes. John Van Trieste has more.
Loose ceiling panels and bent columns. This apartment complex's car park withstood last week's 7.2 earthquake, but there's still a risk of collapse. Residents have taken to putting thick blankets on their car hoods in case more concrete falls from above. 200 households live in this complex in the northern city of Keelung, far from the quake's epicenter in eastern Taiwan, but still badly shaken. It's an old structure built with sea sand years before Taiwan adopted tough earthquake building codes. The city's been pushing to reinforce buildings like this since 2017 as part of urban renewal plans. While 70% of residents agreed to renovate the building, the financial incentives offered by the city were too low, so nothing was done. It still stands, but it's not clear for how much longer. Keelung's mayor hopes to work out an arrangement to redevelop the area.
联红社区纳入做现在立即要来推动的一个都更的标的的范围，然后连同隔壁的相关的一些国有土地，看能不能做共同的开发，这样子每个月来追踪这个案子的进度。
There are scenes like this across much of Taiwan, where local officials have talked about urban renewal for years, but progress has been slow. Since last week's earthquake, the National Land Management Agency has declared 42 buildings structurally unsound and 70 unsafe for other reasons. Residents of some of the worst-hit buildings had to move out. People like the 48 who live in this Taoyuan apartment block that's been condemned.
已经搬去饭店住了，这那个墙壁都很严重了，里面都裂掉了，都裂掉了，他们2楼、3楼。
And in Taipei, the city government is holding a meeting to persuade the residents of this building, declared unsafe, that the time has come for urban renewal here too.
要搬家就只能搬家了，就看怎么样再说吧。对啊，现在也不知道。
Whether this will be a turning point in slow-moving urban renewal plans is uncertain. And as strong aftershocks continue to shake unsafe buildings like this one, it's also uncertain what's going to happen in the long term to so many displaced people. Luffy Li and John Van Trieste in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
To learn more about the earthquake's possible impact on urban renewal efforts, John Van Trieste spoke to Chen Ming-xiu, director of Urban Renewal Advocacy Group NTURI.
Urban renewal hasn't proceeded as quickly as many local governments will have hoped. What are the biggest obstacles to urban renewal in Taiwan?
就是人的问题啦，其实最多都是人的问题。政府它其实最常在处理的就是没有同意的人，他要怎么样去保障他的权益。那虽然后来在108年的时候，我们政府有修了一个都更条例嘛，针对说不同意户我们要怎么样有一个代拆的一个方式， 有订定的这个相关规定，可是这个程序往往走完又花了1年的时间，所以会变成说遥遥无期啦。
So what are residents in buildings that have either been declared unsafe or condemned supposed to do after this earthquake? Will they have to pay the cost of urban renewal?
其实都更它本来就是民众在买单，就是你要参加都更的人，你就要负担自己的一个成本。那我觉得在这次地震上，政府当然就是说给予人道上的协助，可能说我暂时帮你们居住在哪里，可是政府其实它更应该要去有一个强制力去执行说，这个老旧的房屋，我是不是要用政府的力量，我自己来当，就像政府来当建设公司，自己来推动。或者是说用公开招标的方式去选择一个厂商来协助民众来新建成一个新房子。
Does your organization think that this earthquake is going to significantly increase people's interest in urban renewal?
可是其实最大的问题是，真的知道都更的人其实就只有我们这种从业人员，或者是说在房价比较高的地区已经有人在推动都更的民众，他们才会知道什么叫都更。但有时候我们到了比较乡下的地方去啊，乡村地方去，或是空地比较多的，他们根本也不清楚什么叫都更。政府他可能鼓励民众去做健康检查，或者是说我们最近有什么疫苗可以免费的施打，可是其实我们看不到政府在都更老屋改建这个地方上有做很多媒体的一个宣导。
Once again, that was John Van Trieste speaking with urban renewal advocate Ma Ying-jeou. This year's annual Han Kuang military exercise will take place at the end of the month. Bryn Thomas was at the Defense Ministry in Taipei to find out more about how the country is preparing to defend itself.
Taiwan's military has just announced the date of its largest military drills, the Han Kuang exercises. Now, these drills will be divided into 2 parts. One will be war games held inside at the end of April and held in private. The second will be live fire drills held across the country, which will focus on combined arms and getting Taiwan's military to work together.
本次演习将借各种状况，验证任务式指挥、分散式指管机制。并遂行独立防卫作战任务之能力。
Now, these drills are an important chance for Taiwan to prepare for a full-fledged invasion of a country. They've been held annually since the 1980s and are a good chance for Taiwan to practice responding to emerging or new threats. One of these threats would be China, which has continually threatened to invade or take Taiwan by force. The officials here say that these drills show that Taiwan is ready for a fight, but not going to start one. Eason Chen, Jaime Okan, and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
Recent incidents of Chinese civilian drones filming military bases in Taiwan's Jinmen Islands have raised alarms about Taiwan's ability to monitor drones. Chris Gorn explains why this puts Taiwan in a tricky situation.
Footage of Taiwanese soldiers walking around the country's outlying Jinmen Islands, shot by civilian drones flown in from China. It's one of a string of incidents involving Chinese civilian drones snooping on Taiwan's military areas. Jinmen lies just a few kilometers from China, and the islands are considered the front line of Taiwan's military defense. After the drone footage was posted online by Chinese bloggers, people on both sides of the strait are asking, how can it be so easy to fly over Taiwan's military bases?
不管是机场或营区周边，各国都一样，都要配备特规的雷达去找这些微小型的无人机。这事件的话，也给陆军一个警惕：我们要科技建军，陆军要跟上时代的脚步。
Taiwan's military says they first used flares as a warning once the drones were spotted, then turned to jamming guns to send them away. But some military experts feel that Taiwan needs to send a stronger message to China.
从乌克兰的统计来看，乌克兰它这个就是我们说的 counter drone 或是 anti drone 的这个系统，它的成功率在80%以上，所以是很有机会可以反制中国的这些drone 的骚扰。那为什么这无人机还可以飞回去？我想是因为台湾的军队是比较算是说比较谨慎，它只把这个 GPS 的 signal 把它切掉。让它出现一下干扰，它就自己就是会 return to home， 就回到它的出发地了。那在乌克兰就没这么客气了，乌克兰是直接就整个把它那个干扰掉，让它直接就是坠毁。
The use of civilian drones in this way is often considered what's called gray zone warfare activity, actions that are provocative but fall short of armed conflict. In a tense cross-strait situation, Taiwan may be trying to demonstrate that it's a calm and responsible actor.
中国方面常常会把这些民主国家的这个就是说规则当成他们就是用来那个违反规则的一个做法。所以在这一次的事件，我觉得不是台湾的 capability， 而是台湾本身的 attitude， 要展现一个 democracy state， 这是最大的不同。
As Taiwan faces more pressure from China, it finds itself in a dilemma. Which is more important, deterring gray zone activities or avoiding the risk of escalating the situation into open conflict? Chris Ma and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's former President Ma Ying-jeou says attempts to decouple China and Taiwan will fail. That comes a day before he's expected to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Reese Ayers has the latest on Ma's China visit.
Standing atop the Great Wall, Taiwan's former President Ma Ying-jeou is partway through his trip to China. A visit he hopes can help tear down the wall that stands between Taipei and Beijing. Leading a student delegation to China since April 1st, Ma has been visiting various cultural sites around the country. He's expected to finally sit down with Chinese President Xi Jinping on April 10th and attempt to assume the role of peacemaker.
两岸之间共同的语言、情感的共鸣，是任何刻意为之的手段或意识形态所切不断的。同时，我也相信，任何所谓去中国化的行径都不会成功。
The meeting will coincide with a summit between the leaders of the US, Japan and the Philippines, who will discuss shared concerns about Beijing's claims on the South China Sea. Despite Ma's visit, cross-strait tensions remain high. China, which claims Taiwan as its own, has not ruled out using force to bring the island under its control. Official communication between the two sides broke down in 2016 when the incumbent Tsai Ing-wen took over from Ma as president of Taiwan. And with just over a month before Tsai's VP Lai Ching-te takes the presidency, relations are likely to remain sour. Though Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council remains hopeful more exchanges can help bridge the divide.
那我们当然期待所有的国人呢到大陆去，不管是观光旅游或者是文化教育的交流，都能够顺利平安的回国。两岸呢只要有沟通交流呢都是好事啦。
But with Ma no longer holding an official position in Taiwan, there may be a limit to how far his exchanges with China can go towards easing the political stalemate across the Taiwan Strait. Joseph Wu and Reese Ayers for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, legislators are looking to expand parental leave for Taiwanese workers. Stay tuned.
At Connected, we believe in the power of dialogue.
Taipei 101
It's not just about the headlines, it's about finding common ground. Join the conversation.
Connected with Divya Gopalan on TaiwanPlus.
I'm Ed Moon in Taiwan's Jinmen Islands, and you're watching TaiwanPlus News, the voice of freedom in Asia.
我自己少遇见一朵花，我可能就不是这个样子。
开始思考什么叫做一个本土性，
大声的唱出来说我是台湾人。
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Legislators in Taiwan are trying to help working parents balance childcare and their careers. Tiffany Wong reports on some of their proposals.
Newborns, a dwindling number in Taiwan. The country has one of the lowest birth rates in the world, and last year hit a record low of 5.82 births per 1,000 people. It's an issue the government is trying hard to remedy. Under current employment laws, the government provides subsidies for those taking parental leave for children under 3 to try and ease the financial burden for Taiwan's young working parents. But some legislators say the country's working parents still need more support, and they are proposing that the government allow people to take parental leave until their children are 8 years old. They're also proposing more flexibility in the amount of time that people can take off. Parents are currently required to take a minimum of 30 days off, a period that results in a dock in their pay. Legislators say it makes more sense to allow parents to take time off in day or even hour increments to deal with the unpredictability of parenting.
肠病毒这个问题就常常花掉家长可能要请个5天，那常常都会是他们一个在劳动条件里边，他们会觉得对他们来讲比较不这么好。
The new proposals also seek to encourage fathers to take parental leave to promote equal participation in childcare for parents, a model legislators say has worked in Japan.
员工超过100人的公司，并且这大概5万家去制定而且公布男性育婴休假的比例的目标，是不是？他这样子才可以彻底的从上而下的带动整个企业文化。
For many here, more needs to be done to improve not just Taiwan's work culture, but its support of parents who are employees.
目前在职场上，在对于就是怀孕的育婴的这个部分，好像还是没有到那么的友善。
我觉得单纯孕育这样可能还好，可能费用的补助会比较实际一点。
What's clear is that under current regulations, there are still a lot of barriers for young adults here to having children.
Along with a declining birth rate, Taiwan's population is rapidly aging, causing concerns for a diminishing workforce and an economic slowdown, making it a priority for Taiwan's government to come up with the correct combination of policies to support young families and bolster the country's future. Justin Wu and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Russia and China could soon start deepening security cooperation in Asia and Europe. That's after Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov announced his country will begin discussions with China on how to counter rising U.S. influence in the region. Lavrov met his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi and then Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing on Tuesday. Both foreign ministers added that their countries aim to strengthen ties against terrorism. That's after a recent terrorist attack in Moscow and a separate drone attack on a Russian-controlled nuclear plant in Ukraine. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says Washington will not accept another wave of underpriced Chinese goods impacting the global market.
And when the global market is flooded by artificially cheap Chinese products, the viability of American and other foreign firms is put into question. And we've seen this story before. Over a decade ago, massive PRC government support led to below-cost Chinese steel that flooded the global market and decimated industries across the world and in the United States. I've made clear that President Biden and I will not accept that reality again.
Yellen warned China to rein in excess industrial capacity during her 4 days of high-level talks with officials and business leaders in Guangzhou and Beijing. Her comments come amid worries there could be a repeat of the so-called China shock of the early 2000s that saw a flood of Chinese imports destroy 2 million American manufacturing jobs. Yellen said a newly created exchange forum would seek to tackle the issue, but did not specify the actions Washington may take if Beijing continues overproducing goods like electric vehicles, batteries, and solar panels. In a blow to Myanmar's junta, rebel forces say they're close to capturing a major town on the country's border with Thailand. Fighters from Myanmar's Karan ethnic militia say more than 600 junta soldiers surrendered in Miaudi on Monday. They say they now have control of 90% of the area. Thai officials say they're allowing planes from Myanmar to land evacuation flights across the border in Thailand on humanitarian grounds. Thai Prime Minister Seta Thavisin says the military junta is weakening. Japan's Prime Minister Kishida Fumio has arrived in Washington, D.C. for a meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden on Wednesday. Kishida will also be the second Japanese leader in history to address a joint meeting of Congress. The two countries will be looking for ways to increase security cooperation against an increasingly assertive China. The summit comes a day before Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. also arrives in Washington ahead of a trilateral summit between the three countries. At the summit between the U.S. and Japan, one of the major announcements could be allowing Japan to enter parts of the AUKUS Defense Pact. To explain what that means and how it could affect Taiwan, our reporter Jaime Okan spoke to Tom Corbin, a security analyst from the United States Study Center in Sydney.
Steps being taken for Japan to join AUKUS, how significant is that?
It's a signal that the three countries see Japan as a valuable, not only traditional defense partner in the sense of joint military exercises, force posture, and what have you, but they also see it as a potential real contributor of defense technology to a collective defense technological enterprise that is represented by something like AUKUS Pillar 2. The problem here is that the specifics of how Pillar 2 actually functions are still being worked out. The fact that the three countries who are already inside AUKUS have since the get-go essentially said that they are interested in bringing fourth parties like Japan into the mix, and that Japan is being brought in at a fairly early stage in the environment setting of Pillar 2, if you will, means that Japan will actually have a bigger say in how that enabling environment is actually set up. So rather than being brought in at a later stage where the rules are essentially set, Japan is basically given an option to take it or leave it as it stands. Bringing Japan in at an early stage actually allows policymakers in Tokyo to contribute to the formation of that collective defense technological enterprise, if you will.
Getting the indirect benefits of these blocks. Can you talk a little bit about what maybe Taiwan is receiving on that end?
The real order of the day is to better network those different alliances and partnerships into something that resembles what many senior officials in the Biden administration frequently refer to as a lattice work of security partnerships. That involves not only developing the United States relationships with its existing allies like Australia, Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, what have you. All of these things knitted together when it comes to Taiwan's interests or the second order benefits that Taiwan might gain from these sorts of things. If all of these arrangements pay off in that they deter China from taking more aggressive or overt military action to achieve its aims in the region, I think that is the indirect payoff for Taiwan, whether that is the direct security of Taiwan in a cross-strait scenario or the wider deterioration of the regional balance of power that could result if these minilaterals don't deliver.
That was Jaime Okan speaking to Tom Corbin, a security analyst from the United States Study Center in Sydney. On Monday, people in Mexico, the U.S., and Canada celebrated a rare sighting of a total solar eclipse, an event that happens once every 375 years. Irene Lin brings us some highlights from this special day.
A cosmic shadow spreads slowly across the North American continent, covering cities from the west coast of Mexico to Canada's east coast. As the ring of fire emerges, this part of the world is plunged into total darkness.
3, 2, 1, boom!
Millions watched as the moon ate away at the sun, bringing minutes of night to the day. For many, the solar eclipse was the experience of a lifetime.
Oh my God, it was really amazing. Yeah, it was an experience I've never felt before. When it got totally dark, I literally was like screaming the whole time. I actually cried a little tear or two, because it was like overwhelming. It was an amazing experience.
So this one, probably the last one I'll see. I was told the next one's in Denver in 20 years. We'll see if I'm still around.
In Niagara Falls, a young couple marked a special moment with a ring.
Well, it was just that union between the sun and moon, bringing those two different things together and making something beautiful, I think in a lot of ways symbolizes relationships, engagement, and marriage. So it was just phenomenal to be able to do it here in such a beautiful, natural place.
It isn't often that a total solar eclipse passes through such densely populated areas. And along its path, celestial watchers came from near and far to celebrate together. while the visitors bringing an added benefit to the local communities.
And so they spend actually a lot of money, and which will contribute and circulate in the local economy. So it has a big impact on the local communities and the local destinations.
But not everyone got to appreciate the phenomenon. Due to high demand, stores ran out of the protective lenses needed to witness the cosmic event.
It sold out pretty quickly within the week leading up to the filter.
It was a unique experience for each person who saw it. An extraordinary event that symbolizes everything from renewal to everlasting love. There won't be another total solar eclipse along the same path in over 3 centuries, but the memories of this one will last a lifetime. Yi Pan and Irene for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Before we go, check out these British and French troops taking part in a ceremony marking the 120th anniversary of the Entente Cordiale at the Élysée Palace in Paris. I'm Leslie Liao. Take care and see you next time.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.